Gaining muscle and protein. So if you're training in the gym, obviously your aim is to gain muscle. Now, protein is a key driver of gaining muscle. So what are the key things that you need to know? How can you be optimal with what you do? So protein targets are very individual and based on body weight. So you can't always have the same amount of protein as a person next to you. So as an average and a daily target, you want between 1.6 and 2.2 grams of protein per kilo of body weight. Now that is if you are training in the gym. The more you can have, there's nothing wrong with that, the better. But most people struggle to either get to those targets. So 100 grams per day is a good place to start. Then once you've got your daily target and what you're working towards, then each feeding of protein, each meal, needs to be 0.5 grams per kilo of body weight. So we're taking our daily target, so we'll say it's 100 grams, and then each feeding needs to be 0.5 grams per kilo of your body weight. So if you are just roughly working to that 100 grams, what you could do is just have 30 grams in your breakfast, lunch, evening meal, and then top it up with snacks. Or obviously you could go over that 30 grams per meal. So your evening meal could be 40 grams as an example. When you are eating protein, it does something called spiking MPS. Now, MPS is muscle protein synthesis. So that is the process of building muscle in your body. Now, you can only start this process every 2.5 to 4 hours, regardless of how often you eat protein. So we're taking your daily target of how much protein you need per day. We're then breaking it down into meals, and then we want to kind of look at eating every 2.5 to 4 hours. So breakfast, lunch and dinner generally will be spaced 3 to 4 hours apart. So that is perfect, and that is the best place to start. If you wanted to change to 4 meals per day, obviously hitting that 30 grams per meal, then obviously you just need to look at the times that you are eating. And obviously that depends on how many calories you've got per day as well, to whether you could get 4 meals. But 3 is great throughout the day. And just remember, protein is the building blocks, but you also need to do some other things as well to gain muscle. So to grow muscle, you need to train the muscle with intensity. So obviously that's all the muscles that you're looking to grow, and do something called progressive overload. So that's every time you go in the gym, trying to push a little bit more, whether that's how many reps you do, how many sets you do, the weight, how long it takes you to complete that set, or the rest in between gets shorter. So there's different ways that you can do progressive overload, but yeah, you need to be training that muscle to intensity. Obviously, like I've just said, you need to eat adequate protein as above. Then you need to rest each muscle for at least 24, if not 48 hours after training. You can't train your legs on a Tuesday and then go back on a Wednesday. That is not enough rest time. If you ran a marathon on a Tuesday and then went to run a marathon on a Wednesday, you would not be capable. Just because you can train that muscle doesn't mean that it is optimal and that you should be doing that. So split up your training to make sure you've got at least a day, if not 2 days, between each muscle group. Then eat carbohydrates. These will fuel your training. You want to make the most of each training session. So by cutting carbohydrates out of your diet, you will feel tired and lethargic and not be able to train with intensity. So obviously to grow that muscle, you need to train with intensity. Carbohydrates will fuel that training. Where you eat them throughout the day doesn't matter. They get stored in your muscles as glycogen, and then they just get used obviously once you train. So you can eat them the day before, an hour or 2 before, doesn't really matter. Make sure you drink enough water. So when the carbohydrates go into your muscles and get stored as glycogen, they take water with them to store them as well. So you need to have at least 2 litres per day, 3 litres on training days. Make sure you stay hydrated. It will also help with the muscle repair as well. Getting enough sleep. This is key. So 7 to 9 hours per night, because whilst you're resting, whilst you're sleeping, that is when your muscles are repairing and recovering from your training session. So sleep is key in this as well. So training without progressive overload won't stimulate the muscle to grow. So you've got to train with intensity. Stick to one program in the gym for at least 6 to 8 weeks to be able to see that progressive overload, that you are either increasing how many reps you are doing, you can increase the sets, you can decrease your rest time between each set, or you're pushing the weight up that little bit more. If you keep changing which exercises and which program you're doing, you're not going to be able to see that progressive overload. Don't try and do too much. 3 to 4 training sessions per week is enough. And like I said, we need 24 to 48 hours after training to rest each muscle group. So obviously trying to do 6-7 training sessions in a week, you're just going to be too tired to train with intensity, and that muscle will not have recovered enough. If you are wanting to do cardio, always put the weight training before any cardio. So you want to go into that training session fresh with all the energy, all the carbohydrates, ready to fuel that session so you can lift as heavy as possible. If you do the cardio first, you're going to exhaust yourself, and then you're not going to have any energy to do that weight session. So weights first, and then if you want to do some cardio, either put it in after your session or put it in on another day, on a rest day, for an example. Rest is important. Like I said, get enough sleep, rest each muscle between your training sessions, and that is a time that it is repairing and it is growing. If you don't give it that rest, it's not going to be able to repair itself and grow, which is obviously the aim for you. Protein, quantity and timing is key. So you want to be spiking muscle protein synthesis as much as you can each day. 3 times is great if you can do it for, perfect, but 3 times is what you want to be aiming for. So make sure you space out your meals 3 to 4 hours between each meal, and make sure you're hitting that 0.5 grams per kilo of body weight in that feeding. So 30 grams is usually the higher end for most people. 20 to 25 is probably what you're going to be looking for. So look to changing your breakfast to making sure you're getting that 20 to 30 grams in. Same in your lunch, same in your evening meal. Then overall, if you can get to 100 grams per day, that is only going to be more beneficial. So hopefully this video helps. If you've got any questions on any of that, please let me know, and hope you enjoyed.